Gonna make the profiles boom, 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 boom. What they is, I'm gonna tell you exactly what it is and what it ain't right here on Gunner's Profile. What it is real talk in real life by a real one who really did it and really been there. What it ain't is added preservatives, man. I'm not gonna give you no bullshit. I'm not gonna put 10 on the 2. So obviously I'm not gonna put tapatio on it. I'm just gonna give it to you as I know it and real. Now, as you can tell by the thumbnail, you see Lizard, Asha Lee. For those of you that don't know who he is, and this is the first time you ever seen that fucking ugly bastard, I'm telling you right now, this is the Vato from that episode of Gangland who portrayed himself as Casper. So I was scared, I eat enough, I sleep enough, I bleed. That's him. He was actually a high-ranking member of Nuestra Familia for a long time. Now, I'm going to give you a little back history on the story. I know I've spoken on it in the past, but in order to tell you this untold story, I have to tell you a little bit of the back history. So sabes que en menudo está in a direct fashion, we're going to get straight into it. The story of Asha Lee, a lightweight profile on one Mr. Lizard, Pittsburgh, California, the East Bay. Now, trip out. The story goes, and I'm going to give you a lightweight spin on it. The story goes that this Vato at one point in time was actually a Southsider associate, okay? Not a Southsider. He wasn't identifying as a Sureño, a Camarada, or a Southsider, but he found himself in prison as a Southsider associate, meaning that he had did a lot of time on the guy is willing and dealing and associating with Vatos from the South. You know, Vatos that were actually living up north, but were from the South. Now, the story goes that he actually came from the Sur of Califas and moved up to the East Bay area, Pittsburgh, California, and started to rock with a little bit of everybody, but did a lot of business dealings with Vatos from the South, upstate Southsiders, upstate Sureños, whatever you want to call them. Now, of course, he finds himself in San Quentin. San Quentin being the reception for up north. He finds himself in the Bay Area in San Quentin. Sabes que he gets caught up in a case, and he has a primo, a family member that is actually a made NF member on that yarda. So they get to conversating, and his primo is able to instill in him some indoctrination that tells him, hey, sabes que, you need to be over here with us. You need to be over here with the North. This is where it's at. And whatever the case may be, the philosophy that he was speaking to him, the education he was giving him, this Vato took a liking to it, grasped it, and ran with it, and basically flipped sides. He was a Southsider associate, and he chose to rock with the dictation of the Nuestra Familia and the Norteño movement. Okay, how that was able to be facilitated and how that happened, you got to understand that these times in the early 90s, it was a little bit different. It wasn't as structured as it is nowadays. So es que Vatos can't flip and flop. Nowadays, you are who you are. You're going to identify with your people, and that's just plain what it is. Plain and simple. So es que menudo. You don't get a chance to pick it. So es que, wait, hold on now. Hold on now. Today, so es que today, shit, the Africans, they're big over there. So es que, who is that? The Crip? So let's get on power rule. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to be a Crip, right? You can't switch up. You can't just kick it with whoever you want on the yada. The yadas will be split. Politics are very heavy. Structure is very deep. And you will be going with your hand in. That's just the way it is. But he was able to do this, okay? To what degree he was able to do this, I can't call it. Was his whole heart really in it? Or was this just a ploy to be a spy? I don't know, but at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you some stories that you've never heard before, and you're going to hear it first. Boom, via Gunner's Profiles. You know how I get down. So anyways, this Vato, he starts to get indoctrinated with the Norteño movement, the Norteño cause, and starts to strive. He finds himself caught up in a lot of situations, man, and actually does some hands-on removals where he almost beats a dropout gang member to death. Doing this, man, he finds himself in the shoe. Once he's in the shoe, once he's in the oil, he starts to become indoctrinated by some very well-known Nuestra Familia members who take a liking to him. He's a big Vato, man. He has that look, he has that presence, and he's willing to go the extra mile. So, of course, he gets embraced, man. The canalismo is there, and he starts to become educated and fucking brought into the inner circle. Somewhere along the line, he goes and does a couple shoe terms and starts to fucking become associated with a Vato named Gerald Cuete Rubalcaba, who is very well known throughout history, okay? And he starts to work hand in hand with several individuals. Of course, at this time, he's short timing, so he actually hits the calles. Upon hitting the calles, man, he starts to do his willing and dealing. He's put in place to become a regiment commander. Okay, what the whole regiment commander entails, I know you've heard it on a lot of channels, man. Not necessarily on my channel too much, but on several other channels. He was the one. Okay, he was the one basically running Norte Califas. He was the man. He was one of the highest ranking NF members because he had been pulled into the NF at this time. So he was one of the highest ranking members, man, doing his thing. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, he was starting to become bitter and starting to defect away from the group. He felt that if for no other reason, he was getting backdoored. He was getting played out of pocket. And he decided to get in the pockets of the federal government and start working with the feds. And he is the catalyst to Operation Black Widow, the big operation, RICO operation that went down in the 2000s that actually was able to infiltrate the NF and actually ultimately bring a lot of the high-ranking members down, okay, and place them in the federal prison system, to which they still sit to this day, still doing their thing, still highly respected, but they're doing it in a federal fashion at the time of this missive. So Trip, doing all this, he's still that man on the calles, and he's a double agent. Nobody knows exactly what he's getting into and what he's doing. And of course, he's out there still running regiments, but he was a sneaky bastard. There was a lot of stories that were going on that he was actually still giving directives to do bad to people. And he was playing the part. He was a rogue agent. He was double. He was still living that life because he was all fucking on Chiva, but at the same time, he was actually giving information and setting people up, wearing wiretaps and setting people up for the feds. And this is just the way his life was entailing. This is what he wanted to do. He felt, because he got a green light put on him at one point in time, that he was going to do the cause dirty, right? And to each their own, man. Everyone gets put in certain situations, and you can't knock a man for doing what he does. But at the same time, this guy was doing it, man, for his own selfish benefits and for his own selfish reasoning. So anyways, the story goes, the Vato he gets caught up, gets identified as someone who gets involved in the Capsule Incident. Now, the Capsule Incident is a big incident that went on in Salinas, right? Where Tizok, a vato named Tizok, a young norteño striving, actually finds himself in a situation where he comes upon a degenerate man, someone who's on the outside looking in, and he runs up on this guy and smokes him at a bar. It's a big case. Of course, man, there's a lot of twists and turns in that case. There's a lot of he said, she said, a lot of people saying he told me to do it, he told me not to do it. Whatever the case may be, man, at the time, this guy said that he had gotten a hold of someone who had gotten a hold of Lizard, Casper from Gangland, Ashali, as he's known, and that this vato had given the directive to handle his business. Of course, Lizard said that he gave his directive not to handle business. We'll never know, man. The only ones that know are the people that were on that. So what should we do, Lizard? Handle it. What does in that fashion? I mean, to what degree of handle it? Because, Saskia, you're sneaky. You know what I mean? I don't know, whatever degree you want. Saskia, 90 degrees. Oh, the wind's blowing. Anyways, they handled their business. This young kid took it upon himself to do whatever he did, allegedly. And of course, man, one guy came up dead. Another one was shot. About the name Joe Cantu was hit in the process. And Lizard was looked at in all forms and fashions as being a rogue guy. Now, upon him doing his thing on the stand and testifying against some of these high-ranking members, he was placed in several different places. Now, this is where my untold story comes in, okay? And this was brought to me by someone who was actually there with Lizard, okay? A Southsider at that. Bang, bang, trip out on this. Lizard was in the, he had a handler, okay? And he was placed in protective custody, meaning that they had him all around the country. At one point in time, he was on the East Coast marinating. And they do this, man. They place you in different places. So that way, your old group doesn't know where you're at. They can't get to you. And he's waiting to testify in court. So upon him testifying, they had him sitting down over there in Idaho, Boise, Idaho. Or excuse me, Spamsaw. He was actually in Nampa, Idaho at this time. And that's when this young kid becomes involved, okay? Now, here goes the story. So the vato's sitting in Idaho. No one knows about him. He had just filmed this Gangland episode where, of course, they blurred his face out and they changed his name to Casper. He gave up a lot of the game, man. He said what he said. Those of us that knew, those of us that were in that life at the time, and those of us that were living that life, obviously knew exactly who he was by the way he talked, his mannerisms, and the story he told, okay? It was Lizard Ashali from Pitas, Pittsburgh, California. This is the city that he claimed while incarcerated. This is what people knew him by. Of course, on the Gangland episode, he went under the assumed name Casper. Of course, they switched his name up, covered his identity so that way vatos didn't know what he looked like, but we already knew he looked like this with a big old brocha. So Trip, this youngster tells me a story. He actually gets a hold of me. This is about a year ago. Tells me this story. We did start to record it. He got a little scared. He was kind of a shaky individual. I believe the story to be actual and factual, but at the same time, he didn't want to quite put it up there. By him saying it because he was scared. He was scared. He was like, I don't know, bro. I'm not really in that line. I'm a Southsider at the same time. I don't want to really get involved. And I said, watch out. I'll tell the story eventually, man. Just go do your thing. Go work in the fucking cannery or wherever you work. So I was going to put a tomato in your back pocket, sit down, catch up. Heinz, right? So he bounced. But the story he told me was crazy. Okay, this is the untold story of Mr. Casper, Lizard, aka Ashali de Pitas. So he finds himself in Nampa, Idaho. And this kid's working at this cannery factory, right? Just a regular factory, man. He's doing his thing. He's a Southsider, a homegrown Southsider from Nampa, Idaho. And from what he told me, there wasn't very many Southsiders there. There's more Norteños there. But at the same time, the Southsiders that were there held it down for their shit. You know, being Southsiders, being worldwide. This is what he identified with. He had that Cholo stilo. He liked Kid Frost. He liked listening to Little One. He liked listening to Night Owl, Nightmare, and all this shit. So this is how he started to identify towards the Southern cause. I ain't mad at him, man. Raza is raza. At the end of the day, brown is brown. So he says one day he's at work. And there's a new guy that starts at work. And this guy's a very tall individual. Tattoos on his head. And looks almost like a white boy, right? And anyone that knows Lizard knows that he could pass for a biker. He could pass for a wood. This is just how he looked. He says, the vato had a big old brocha. And it was what it was. He said, this guy wasn't no punk. You could just see the look in his eye. And anyone that knows, man, Lizard wasn't no sucker, man. He would get with your business. He would get with your program very fast, right? So that they actually start, this guy takes a liking, Casper takes a liking, or Lizard, to this youngster. They start conversating. And this youngster's like, hey, where you from? Lizard takes a step back and says, hey, I'm from Califas. I'm a Southsider from Califas. So he's identifying himself and putting himself out there as a Southsider as to not basically tell his history of to the Norteños and the NF, right? So this youngster's like, oh, cool. So he thinks he has a camarada there, a homeboy. They become fast friends. Like I said, Lizard took a liking to this youngster. Well, they're kicking it a lot, man. And this youngster actually hooks Lizard up. Lizard being older with his mother. So he's always at his pads. So he's getting his motherfucking pegada on, right? He's getting his Arby's on with old boy's mom. But it's all good in the hood. Homeboy looks at him as a father figure. He's lacing him up as far as gangster mentality, but not giving him the norte clecha, just giving him that gangster clecha, right? So everything's good in the hood. Well, what happens is one day the kid is sitting down, looking at the internet, watching YouTube. He's watching the internet, and a new show comes on called Gangland. And I don't know if it was the first episode or the second or third or fourth season or whatever it was, but it comes on, man, and it actually shows Ashali Casper. Well, this kid quickly, that's no doing there fucking my mom right now, right? He identifies him quick, even with the face covered and the talk, the speech. He knows it's him, right? So they're at work the next day, and this kid is acting a little different, and Casper walks up on him and can see that he's acting a little different. And so Casper gets at him like, hey, what's cracking, bro? Right? And the kid's like, hey, let me get at you one time for my mind. The wind's blowing. Okay, I ain't trying to do too much, but at the same time, I ain't trying to do too little either. The kid feels like he should approach him and ask him these questions, even though he's scared to death of Casper, because he says he has seen Casper with cuetes allegedly on him, and just things that he's seen, man, that he doesn't want no part of. But anyways, he brings it. He's like, fuck you, know, la primera, fuck the world, white guy, right? He's going to say what he has to say, and he says, hey, bro, are you Casper from Gangland? And he says, Ashali took 2 steps back and said, why, what's up, bro? And he says, yeah, I'm just, nah, bro, I ain't tripping off nothing. It's just, I thought you were a salsa. What the fuck, right? And he said he was more disappointed and more like, just like, what's going on? He didn't understand. And he said that Casper told him, I say Casper because I'm going by the name of Gangland, that Ashali told him, Lizard told him, hey, look, bro, don't worry about none of that. If you tell anyone who I am, I will do something bad to you and your mom, right? So this, allegedly, okay? So this dude is spooked. He shook up. He don't want no problems. And he says about a year passes. And Ashali's still there. He said the funny thing is he used to leave work for several weeks at a time and then come back. And he always thought it was mysterious. Always thought it was funny because this vato always had his job. He was like, Sasuke, if I leave for 2 days just to take my old lady to fucking go to a motel just to bone her one time, they're tripping on me. Pero this guy used to go for weeks at a time. What he didn't know is his handlers had... Ashali's handlers had placed him at this exact spot, and he was able to go work with the feds, man, on other cases on the East Coast, West Coast. This vato was actually working with them hand in hand, doing some things, right? Allegedly. Now, I'm not going to sit here and spit that as a fact, but I'm saying this is what actually came out in the wash from this kid. So he tells me that one day he approaches Ashali, and he's like, hey, bro, just... it's always been a mystery to me, man. What's the rundown? What's the real deal? What's the real story? I ain't tripping. By this time, he's already done fucking impregnated his mom and all kinds of other shit, right? So he says... What's going on? And Casper starts to tell his story, but he tells it with a twist. He tells him that he was actually an Emero spy that found his way into the NF and was told to infiltrate the NF and to bring them down. Now, of course, I'm not spitting this to be true. This is not facts. This is not actual facts. I'm not going to stamp this. This is the story that Casper told this kid. Okay, and this kid ran with it and he told me. And so he said, is that a fact? He said, that's a motherfucking fact. And in that fashion. And I always sat on that story and thought it to be crazy. And I thought I'd put it out here right here on Gunner's Profiles now. Because, was he? What was actually he doing? You know, we already know for a fact that he was a Southern sympathizer, that he was actually sympathizing with the Sureño cause, the Southern cause, the Southsiders when he was incarcerated. Then he got flipped. Or did he? Was this just his way of getting himself ingrained in the Norteño movement, the NF, to possibly bring them down? One will never know, does one? But at the same time, I've always thought it a mystery, and I always thought that story rang a little true the way that kid told it. I know for a damn fact that is what Casper told that kid. That kid told me that firsthand and foremost. How do I know? Because that kid actually produced pictures to me of Casper with his mom, Casper sleeping like that, all kinds of shit on the couch. So I knew that he was not just bullshitting and putting a story out there. And he said, this is what happened. Now, the kid was actually very shook up when we had our conversation and didn't want to put more than that out there. But I always started to think it's quite feasible that this might have been the case. This actually might have been the case. Could this have been the premise to being the NF getting knocked down? The Mesa. I've always thought, man, it could possibly be true. At the same time, man, it's here for you guys to decipher. I'm not going to put nothing more on it and say it is what it is. But at the same time, I thought it was just a tale to tell something and an untold story about Ashley. Now, of course, since the story was told to me, Ashley has passed. You know, I've talked to family members of his that have confirmed that he did pass due to cirrhosis of the liver, a battle he was fighting with for several years that stemmed from drug usage and drinking. And it is what it is, you know. I'm always skeptical. I'm a skeptic, right? So the glass ain't fucking half full. It's half empty. I need some more. Put some more on it. Put some more on it, right? And in that fashion, menudo style. I've always seen the glass half empty. So is he gone? You know, could his handlers possibly have gotten the fuck up down the road because they knew that he was coming down, or people were getting too close to him? One never knows, does one? But I do know for a fact he was out there posted up in Nampa, Idaho for several years. And he did have a relationship with this young cat's mother, man, and did have this cat all spooked. This cat told me a few other stories, man. He said, they bought the stage strapped up, fool. One time he put the thing to my head and was like, say something. Say something. That kid was like, he said, I didn't say nothing. But when he left, I was talking again. I said, orale, Smokey, right? So anyway, Smokey, you want 20 white rack? Right? He was down for whatever. Anyways, with that being said, I just wanted to put it out there. That was an untold story to me about one lizard, Ashley Hernandez. You guys already know what it is, man. If you don't know, refer to her story. It's all over YouTube. Google the vato. That's the vato Casper. I eat on him. I'll sleep it. I'll breathe it. Was he really breathing it, or was he just playing the role to infiltrate? There's been a lot of cases throughout history where not only other gang members from different factions, but also law enforcement have infiltrated certain organizations, man, to get information that will benefit their cause and what they truly believe in. Like I said, we do know that at one point in time, Ashley Lizard was a Southsider sympathizer. So maybe, hey, that could be the case. Or it could be totally frivolous, man. At the same case, I believe what this kid told me, that this was told to him. And maybe Ashley was just putting it out there to spin the kid up, man, and to make himself feel better. He was portraying that he was an active Southsider at this time until the kid seen Gangland and said, hold on now, puto, you ain't shit, right? But wasn't going to tell him that because he wanted to keep that finger that he had. Right? With that being said, I hope that you move fast with a purpose. I hope that you get everything that you want coming to you. I hope that this story was able to change your mentality on a few things. I take it as a crazy story, right? With that being said, move fast with a purpose. Go out there and get it for your familia. Remember, no one else is going to do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. This is just a story I'm telling, just a tale I'm telling, because it's untold and it's something I felt I should finally bring you guys. Ain't it a trip? I got a whole lot more. Oh, I got a whole lot of more. With that being said, please hit that like, that thumbs up if you like this story. If not, you can hit that thumbs down. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive and struggle for what I truly believe in, which is the betterment of all people. Brown people, black people, stand up, man. I got nothing but love for you. It is what it is. Sprinkle in the white boys. Sprinkle in the white boys. Love too. You know what it is. Bang, bang.